Hello, I'm Antonio Mora. This is the newsandnews.com day in brief on Thursday, January 24th at about 7 p.m. This is the dialogue and the theater of the absurd that is Washington, D.C. President Trump, we will not cave, demanding to get the full $5.7 billion he wants for border barriers before reopening the government. Speaker Pelosi, we won't negotiate until the government reopens. So then, of course, we learn that they are negotiating, at least through Senate Majority Leader McConnell and Senate Minority Leader Schumer. Then the White House says, oh, well, maybe we'll cut a deal as long as we get a large down payment on the wall. Trump later said a prorated amount for the wall would work. We'll see what that means. It's good they're talking, which should have been the case from the beginning, not the intransigence that has kept the government closed now for more than a month. Today, as expected, Senate bills from both sides failed, with only a handful of defectors, most of them on the GOP side. What's clear is that politicians need to shut out the more stringent voices from the extremes of their respective parties. One pundit today said, you can't talk about both sides, insisting her side's position is the only one that's valid. With people like that, the government will never reopen. Breaking just now is a CNN exclusive story that says the White House is preparing a national emergency order and has identified more than $7 billion in funds that could be used for a wall. What's also clear is that millions are suffering because of the government shutdown, and with every day that passes, it will affect even more of us. FBI agents have warned of dire consequences. Travel union leaders are sounding the alarm about the effects for air travel safety. And former Trump Chief of Staff John Kelly joined 4 other ex-Homeland Security chiefs in asking Trump to fund the department and its critical mission. Some Trump administration officials could use sensitivity training on the shutdown. Billionaire Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross suggested that government workers who aren't getting their paychecks could get loans. Easy for him to say. Ross also said the U.S. is still miles and miles from a trade deal with China. Stocks dropped across the board after that comment, but the NASDAQ and S&P 500 ended the day slightly up, the Dow slightly down. Trump did cave on the State of the Union address, agreeing to postpone it until the government reopens. So we ended up in the right place after 2 weeks of wasteful politicking from both sides. After saying he wouldn't testify on Capitol Hill because he was concerned about the safety of his family, Michael Cohen now doesn't have much of a choice. The Senate Intelligence Committee has subpoenaed him to testify in mid-February. It's not clear how Cohen will respond because his lawyer again said today that Trump's former fixer fears for his family because of what they call ongoing threats from Trump and Rudy Giuliani. The Venezuelan military expressed its support today for the country's dictator, Nicolás Maduro. That's despite the fact that the president of the National Assembly, Juan Guaidó, declared himself interim president, and much of the world recognized Guaidó's legitimacy. To nobody's surprise, a rogues gallery, including Russia, China, and Iran, support Maduro. The Russians went as far as warning the U.S. not to intervene. I've written extensively about Venezuela and have argued that a major U.S. military intervention would be catastrophic. But the risks of it happening are increasing because Maduro ordered American diplomats to leave the country, but the U.S. is defying him, saying he no longer has the authority to do so. If the deadline passes within about 48 hours and Maduro moves in any way against the U.S. diplomats, which admittedly is a big if, he will not only give Trump an excuse to take action, Trump may have no choice. The last few winters have been pretty mild, but this January has been miserable for parts of the Midwest and Northeast, and it may be getting worse. 2 more blasts of bitterly cold weather next week across the central and eastern U.S. could bring the lowest temperatures in 2 years. The Amanda Knox story is like O.J. Simpson's. It never goes away. Today, the European Court of Human Rights ruled that Italy violated Knox's rights. She spent years in prison for a murder of which she was later acquitted. She was awarded little more than $20,000. James Harden was always great, but now he's ridiculous. The Houston Rockets star scored 61 points last night to tie the high for a visiting player at Madison Square Garden. He also tied Wilt Chamberlain for the 4th longest streak of games with 30 or more points. In our alternate universes segment, the great divide between conservative and liberal media, while liberal outlets have focused on the suffering generated by the shutdown, often using emotional stories to push their narrative, some conservative writers and anchors might need sensitivity training themselves. This morning, a Fox News anchor argued that the shutdown was no big deal outside the Beltway because a Fox poll found that about two-thirds of Americans haven't been affected by the shutdown, and that only 10% said they'd suffered severe hardship, seemingly forgetting that 10% of Americans is more than 30 million people. Also dismissed were the 20% who have suffered moderate hardship. That's almost 70 million people. Using numbers to obfuscate. It's lies, damn lies, and statistics. We have all those stories and much more updated around the clock 7 days a week on newsandnews.com, where you'll find all you need to know in one place. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the right of your screen just below this video. Please follow us on Facebook at Real News and News, and follow me on Twitter at AMoraTV. I'll see you again tomorrow.